Hi everyone, welcome back. If you saw my community post, it is because the research for this woman was a doozy of a project. Because this is a long, deep, complex life of a woman that I like to describe as the Princess Diana of Argentina. And the only way to do her justice was to take a little bit more time to do research for her. Because she was a beacon of hope, love, and a voice for equality across Argentina. And if you know her, you know her. If you don't, you're going to learn today because we are talking about Eva Perón. Let's get started. Okay, two quick disclaimers. One, I hear Eva also pronounced as Eva Perón. I'm calling her Eva. If you call her Eva, don't come at me. I've heard it literally both ways. And two, we are in Argentina, so there's going to be Spanish, Argentine words that I'm just not going to be pronouncing correctly completely. I will do my very best to pronounce these things. Again, give me some grace. I literally went on a rant on it last video at the end. So, give me some grace. Let's get going. Maria Eva Duarte was born on May 7th, 1919 in the city of Los Taltos, a rural province of Buenos Aires, Argentina. She was the youngest of 5 children, and her mother was Juana Ibargoren, who was descended from Spanish Basque, which are a southern Western European ethnic group that hail from north-central Spain and southwestern France. Her mother was the mistress to wealthy rancher Juan Duarte, who, given that Juana was his mistress, already had a wife and family, and unfortunately, Los Taltos was not an uncommon place for a wealthy man to have made many families. And due to this, when Eva was a year old, Juan ditched the family and went back to his wealthy first family permanently, leaving Eva and her mom and the rest of her 4 siblings, all of which he fathered, by the way, to the funness of poverty. Lovely guy. To support the family, because Juan was the sole provider money-wise for the family, and after he bounced, that went completely away, Juana had to sew clothes for neighbors. Eva grew up dreaming to become an actress. Her and her sister Erminda even made little performances as children, as if being poor isn't crappy enough. Since Eva was basically a bastard, and Argentina was a country where upper-class snobbery was extreme and vicious against those of not high status and legitimate blood, Eva was humiliated and bullied because she was an illegitimate bastard child and was fairly isolated. When Juan died in a car accident in 1926, Eva's oldest siblings, Juan and Eliza, worked jobs to help provide for the family till the family moved to Junin in 1930. There, Eva's other sister, Blanca, became a teacher, and Juana continued to work as a seamstress while also cooking and bringing in boarders to help with the finances. Because when the family moved, they had moved into a bigger house. When the family moved, Eva was often in plays and concerts in the town, and one of her favorite pastimes was going to the movies. Now, Eva's mom wanted to marry her off to a local bachelor, but Eva wanted to become an actress, and this was solidified in her in October of 1933, when she played a small role in a school play called Students Arise. And after this play, Eva was determined to become an actress. She said about her childhood dream in her autobiography, quote, "Even as a little girl, I wanted to recite. It was as though I wished to say something to others, something important which I felt in my deepest heart." When Eva was 15, she moved to the big city of Buenos Aires, the capital city of Argentina, to pursue her acting dream. Now, before we move on, we need to talk about the version of Argentina Eva grew up in. At the time, Argentina was a nation of recent immigrants, from Italian farmers to German merchants to Spanish shopkeepers, who in turn brought their own politics and values, and they firmly believed that they deserved to have a better life than where they they were coming from and were very willing to work very hard for it. So with this, Argentina in the early 1900s was rapidly growing and changing. It had a rich, strong economy, extremely diverse populations, but the gap between the rich and poor was growing. By the time Eva was born, the country already had about 4 versions of a government, a couple revolutions, about 5 civil wars, multiple civil unrests, and the rise of the Argentine Republic was in full swing. When Eva was born, Argentina was in what's known as the radical phase, and that lasted for 14 years, from 1916 to 1930, in which there was just a lot of stuff happening. Gotta believe me on that one. This is very brief. Also didn't help that little fun thing called World War I. They remained neutral, mind you, but when everything around you was on fire and blowing up, it's a little bit stressful. By the time Eva moved to Buenos Aires, the country was in the infamous decade, which began in 1930 when a military coup took out Argentina's version of Gotti, President Hipólito Yrigoyen, who, in historical terms, sucked. And the decade was marked by 1, a mass rural exodus of farmers moving to the city after America's Great Depression. Yes, the effects reached as far as Argentina. The population bump was so insane, in fact, that Buenos Aires went from 1.5 million people in 1914 to 3.5 million in 1935, Eva being a part of that exodus. And 2, with all the immigrants moving to Argentina with their new ideas and politics, the political and government sphere was messy. So keep all this in mind. Back to Eva. When Eva got to Buenos Aires, she began to pursue her acting dream. In the 1930s, Buenos Aires was known as the Paris of South America, and it was the hub for theaters, movies, restaurants, shops, fashion. Like, it was the place to be. Think of it as Hollywood in Argentina. She found work with many theater companies and soon joined the Argentine Comedy Company, and on March 28th, 1935, she debuted in her first performance that was called The Lady of the Perez. It was a small production, but it was a start. She stayed with the company till January of 1936, joining a few more companies till 1937 when she appeared on the big screen for the first time in the film Segundos Afuera, or Seconds Out, and got a deal working with radio shows while also continuing to perform on stage over the next few years. Eva kept appearing in multiple films, and when she was about 20, she started her own entertainment company called the Company of the Theater of the Air that produced a series of biographies about famous women and radio soap operas. By 1943, Eva just couldn't quite break into the movie star status, but she was doing okay financially and was successful enough. She lived in an apartment in an upper-class neighborhood, and all in all, she was achieving her childhood dreams. Everything was good. Until that next year. On July 15th, 1944, at 8:52 p.m., a massive 7.0 earthquake hit San Juan, destroying many of the mud brick homes in the city and killed 10,000 people. Now, it is at this point that I need to introduce to you to Juan Peron. Very briefly, like, oh my God. Juan Domingo Peron was born on October 8th, 1895 in a province of Buenos Aires. He joined the National Military College, which is an undergraduate college to educate officers for the Argentine Army, in 1911 at 16 years old, and graduated in 1913. There, he excelled in not so much his studies, but more in athletics, mainly boxing and fencing. After graduating, he joined the military in an infantry post, and over the next decade, he rose through the ranks till he was recruited by the War Academy by General Jose Felix Uriburu. I swear that's what Translate told me, who was planning that military coup against the crappy president of Argentina, Hipólito, in September of 1930. After that fun time, he was promoted to major and was given a teaching position at the Superior War School. And by this point, he was married to his first wife, Aurelia Tizon, or Potota, as he called her. From 1936 to 1938, Juan served as a military attaché, also known as a military diplomat, which is someone who is responsible for diplomatic missions for the Argentine embassy in Chile. Unfortunately, Uriela died of uterine cancer on September 10th, 1938. Jumping to 1943, another coup against another Argentine president, Ramon Castillo, happened. Juan was colonel at this time and had a significant role in this coup. He worked in the labor department where he saw a lot of progressive social reforms to improve the working conditions and formed an alliance with the socialist and syndicalist movements in the labor unions, which increased his power and influence in the military government. So much so that by November of 1943, Juan had the Department of Labor elevated to a cabinet level and was made the Secretary of Labor. After the San Juan earthquake, he became a national figure in the relief effort. Funding efforts were entrusted to him, and with his help, Juan had national public approval. And it is at this point Juan and Eva meet. Juan organized an event and invited radio and film actors and actresses to this gala at the Luna Park Stadium in Buenos Aires to raise earthquake relief funds. He wanted an event to celebrate Argentina's artists. The gala was on January 22nd, 1944, and at this gala, 24-year-old Eva met now Colonel Juan Peron, who was 48. The two instantly clicked, and Eva quickly became Juan's girlfriend. She described the day she met Juan as a marvelous day. From this meeting, Eva began to become interested in politics, and since Eva was in radio broadcasting, she made a show that she spoke about the work Juan was doing and championed the working class. In May of 1944, Eva was elected president by a union organized by broadcast performers, and it's from that she then created a daily soap opera called Toward a Better Future that dramatized Juan's accomplishments and would play some of his speeches. 1944 was the start of scary times in the Argentine government, with fights between officials and the military constantly threatening peace. The current president of Argentina, Pedro Pablo Ramirez, was forced to resign when he signed a draft that was written by Juan himself, and people in the government were scared of Juan by this point and were seeing his rise to power and wasn't all that excited about it. They were so scared that his political opponents had him imprisoned. That backfired horribly when a good 350,000 people gathered in front of the Casa Rosada, the government house of the country, and demanded Juan's release. This somehow worked, and he was released on October 17th, 1945, and that next day, October 18th, 1945, Eva and Juan got married in a small ceremony. Then they had the big official church wedding on December 9th, 1945. In 1946, the couple campaigned together for the Argentine presidency, and Juan won by a landslide. On June 5th, 1946, when Juan was sworn in, now Eva Perón became Argentina's first lady. Now, when I say Eva Perón was the Princess Diana of Argentina, I'm not making light of it. I mean it. The people loved her. And Juan saw how much the people loved her and saw that she was a strong political pawn, shall I say, more than an ally. When Juan was campaigning, Eva was very prominent at all of his rallies, and that was new. No woman had ever taken such a strong public role, and some even speculate that she was the reason Juan won in the first place. She also spoke at some of these campaigns, and when I say she was a strong speaker, oh, the crowd was awestruck.
Porque ellos creen que dividir para reinar van a volver a reinar, pero están equivocados. El pueblo argentino se ha despertado y está en mayoría de edad. No volverán ellos nunca más a la patria, o la patria se extinguirá eternamente. Nosotros tenemos una causa a la cual no hemos defraudado, y esa causa es el pueblo. El general Perón, que hoy no ha podido estar presente, aunque lo está espiritualmente con ustedes,
Now, if you know the basics of Eva Perón, you know that she has two names, Eva Perón and Evita. Now, when I say I tried my darndest to dissect why she was called Evita, because that name is basically close to God to the Argentine people. Turns out it was really just a cute nickname the poor people gave her because the people of Argentina idolized her so much. Evita means little Eva, and from this point on, Eva was called Evita more than Eva. For this video though, we're gonna keep calling her Eva. Might throw some Evitas in there. Just know she has two names. Eva embraced her new role as First Lady. She placed members of her family in high government positions like the Postal Service, Customs, and Education. She visited workers and union leaders at their factories, asking them what they needed and encouraging suggestions to improve their working environments. She saw herself as having two personas. Eva was the First Lady of Argentina. Evita was the champion for the working class and poor. Eva used her position as wife and first lady to fight for causes she believed in, like improving the lives of the poor and women's suffrage. She is often credited with getting women the right to vote in Argentina, but in reality, that was beyond her powers. So historians say. I say she got women the right to vote. No, she had power, mind you, but it was limited. After a bill that was basically Argentina's version of the 19th Amendment was shut down, this was reintroduced on August 21st, 1946. The bill was called Law 13010, and it established the political equality right between men and women in Argentina and was eventually passed unanimously. To make it even more awesome, and I'm sorry, this is why Eva Perón in my mind is the reason why Argentine women were given the right to vote. When Juan signed this law to give women the right to vote in a public ceremony and celebration, he then gave the signed law to Eva, symbolically making it hers. I mean, you signed the paper and then you gave it to her. I mean, basically in my mind, that's proof that she gave women of Argentina the right to vote. That's how my mind works. You give me the piece of paper, it's mine. Eva then created the Female Peronist Party, which was Argentina's first large female political party, and by 1951, the party had 500,000 members and 3,600 headquarters across the country. Now, interestingly, Eva did not call or consider herself a feminist, but clearly her impact on the lives of women politically is massive. Like, I cannot stress how massive her everything was politically for women in Argentina. With women having the right to vote by the 1951 presidential election, with Eva's contribution of women's suffrage and the making of the Female Peronist Party, that gained Juan an all-new, hella large majority of voters, 63% to be exact. I mean, it's amazing when you give the other half of the population voting power, you get more votes to win. What? I had no idea if you gave women, the other half of the population of the entire world, rights to vote for things, I have more of a chance to win? Whoa, dude. And on top of it all, Eva inspired many women to get into politics across the board. Backing up, because Eva did more awesome stuff while giving women the right to vote. In 1947, Eva did a tour of Europe. Now, similar to the United States, as First Lady, Eva was tasked with meeting foreign leaders in Europe, because that's just how things are. You know, the president is too busy, so he sends his wife. Known as the Rainbow Tour, this tour actually got Eva a lot of criticism, mainly from men, because they thought that she was overstepping her boundaries and interfering in government affairs. However, how this tour came to happen is a little funny. See, in 1947, the leader of Spain, Francisco Franco, extended an invitation to Juan. He said no because if you're following the year timestamp, the super fun times of World War II has barely ended, and fascism is bad, was still being weaseled out of the continent, and our buddy Francisco here was in that club, and Spain was still rampant with fascism. I said it correctly that time. So, makes sense that till now, no politician was willing to meet with him. Again, fascism, bad, is a good reason to not meet someone or go somewhere where fascism is there. Now, Juan said no, but Eva, she ain't no punk. She ain't no wuss. So she decided if Juan would not accept the invitation to meet the fascist leader in a fascist country because fascism, whatever, she would. And it is with this, I bet, invitation accepted that people of Argentina government thought, she's in Europe. Why not have her visit all of Europe? She's already out there. Now, mind you, yeah, sure, this was a good idea because her going to fascist Spain and back would make it seem like she had sympathies for them. Again, fascism bad. And we don't want that. So her going to other countries would be sold not so much as a political tour, but as a non-political goodwill tour from June to July of 1947. This next bit, I'm gonna rapid fire her tour, where she went, and a couple of the main things that happened. But remember, this is very summed up. First stop, Spain. When she landed in Madrid, she was welcomed by over 3 million people. She visited the tombs of Spanish monarchs. She handed out money herself to poverty-stricken children and received from Francisco himself the highest Spanish government award, the Order of Isabella the Catholic, which is basically a knighthood. So now Eva's a freaking knight. Next up, Rome. People not as jazzed about her arrival, but as you can see by this footage that I found, a lot of people were still pretty dang jazzed to see her. And even though she wasn't received as open-armed as she was in Madrid, but it didn't help that Pope Pius XII didn't give her a papal decoration, which are like medals and titles that are honored by the Holy See and Catholic Church, which is a little bit of a tradition. But hey, he did give his time, which is normally devoted to queens, and gave her a rosary. So that's good. Next, France. Here, she was very well liked and very much welcomed. She promised France would get 2 shipments of wheat because we know they love their baguettes, toured cities, went to parties. This is a dress she wore to one of those parties, and Met Gala amazing, might I say. That's another thing. Dude, Eva was a fashion icon. Again, the similarities of her and Diana, insane. Now, she was already dressing wonderfully in Argentina to impress the people, but this tour, she went all out. The Rainbow Tour, which was called that because Eva was dubbed the Rainbow of Argentina, I love that, was her chance to dazzle the people and leaders of European countries. And as you've seen from some of the photos, she did not disappoint. I mean, look at that hat. She is the most powerful woman in Argentina. So she kind of has to dress to impress. I mean, look at this dress. Are you freaking kidding me? That dress, by the way, found this out, was designed by Christian Dior. Yeah. Founder of Dior. Yeah, he designed that dress and a couple of others for Evita. And that dress is stunning. The shawl, and then you take it off. She's literally Cinderella. Oh, and she was the only queen to be dressed by Dior. Boom. Man, come on. Eva was so popular overseas that Time magazine covered her trip. The article about her trip was released on July 14th, 1947, and the article had a portion on her clothes alone. Quote, shimmer and impulse. As a rainbow, shimmering with a change of clothes at every appearance, courtesating with glittering jewels, shapely brown-eyed Eva was unbeatable. Spaniards high and low took to her with open arms. Up and down the nation for 2 weeks and 4 days, they feted her, showered her with gifts, and as a grand climax, pinned upon her well-rounded bosom the Grand Cross of Isabella la Católica. Eva loved it. End quote. This Time article was not only an article, but Eva was on the cover of Time magazine. Now, that's awesome and all, but this was the first magazine that reported that Eva was born out of wedlock. Obviously, that didn't go down well, and the magazine was banned from Argentina for several months. While she was in France, Eva got word that King George VI of Britain would not talk to her when she visited the country. Now, I don't know why his advisors tried to change his mind, but he wouldn't budge, and no real answers have ever been given. So, since he refused to see her, Eva saw this as a snub and canceled her trip to the UK completely. But she told the press that exhaustion was the reason why she canceled. Yeah, I mean, you can't exactly say, yeah, I'm not going because your freaking king is not going to talk to me. You want to know why? I don't know why. Go ask him. So she went to her last stop, Switzerland. This apparently was the worst part of the trip. According to the book Evita, a biography by John Barnes, when she was going down a road, people were crowding the car she was in because that's just how people were back then. They crowded the cars. You would never see that today. And someone threw 2 stones that smashed the windshield. Now, she wasn't hurt, but when she sat with Switzerland's foreign minister, protesters threw tomatoes at her. Mind you, they landed on the minister and splattered on Eva's dress, but after this, she was done. Had enough. Nope. I'm out. She stopped the 2-month tour right then and there and went back to Argentina. Now, we don't exactly know if the rocks and tomatoes that were thrown at her were meant for her or if it was meant for the foreign minister. We just have no idea. Interestingly, when Eva returned to Argentina, she was never seen in public with the complicated hairdos she had basically all her life. And her extravagant clothes became more refined and relatable after the tour, and she soon adopted a more simpler yet fashionable style. Personally, after wearing all of that, I would like some khaki pants too. But most of her clothes were still being designed by Dior. Because why stop that? I have Dior on speed dial, bro. I'm gonna freaking use him to style my now comfortable khakis. Come on. Like I said, Eva loved participating in charitable works and was very involved in a lot of them. The Society of Beneficence was a charitable organization that did a lot of work with the homeless women and orphans of Buenos Aires. Now, remember that Time article that said Eva was born out of wedlock and that comment backfired? Well, here's why that was bad besides everything else. It's tradition that the society elects the First Lady of Argentina as their president. However, with the claim of the article, the 87 older female members of the society didn't approve of the allegations of the article of Eva's poor bastard background, former career as an actress, and lack of formal education. Therefore, the old ladies were afraid that Eva would set a bad example for the orphans. That is going to set a bad example for orphans. So they did not extend the presidential position to Eva. Unfortunately, reportedly, in retaliation to this, the society's government funding was cut off. I mean, it's freaking Evita, dude. And she's not gonna set a good example for the orphans and the homeless women. However, when Eva established her own charitable foundation, she herself gave 10,000 pesos to the society. Eva's foundation, the Maria Eva Duarte de Peron Foundation, later changed to the Eva Perón Foundation, was established on July 8th, 1948, and its aim was to provide scholarships and monetary assistance to gifted children from poor backgrounds, build orphanages, hospitals, schools, and homes in poor areas and the ghettos of Buenos Aires. By the end of the 1940s, the foundation and Eva had worked so freaking hard and so flippin' good that the foundation was better funded and organized and, quite frankly, run than many of the state departments. Had funds mainly through donations and the Peronist-dominated Congress, over 3 billion pesos, had over 14,000 employees, bought 200,000 cooking pots for distribution to the needy annually, bought 500,000 sewing machines, 400,000 pairs of shoes, and had successfully built tons of homes, orphanages, hospitals, and schools. Eva put as much as 20 to 22 hours a day into her foundation. Juan didn't like this very much, but he's a man. But she felt that she was on a mission to fully eradicate poverty in Argentina. Again, how she was not a good example to the homeless and the orphans, I have no idea. Now, there has been criticism that the foundation's wealth was gotten by Eva coercing people into donating, and that she has set up a secret Swiss bank account that had the funds, but these allegations have been dismissed by more recent biographers of hers. Unfortunately, the foundation began to dissolve after Eva's death and officially dissolved in late September of 1955. Eva took it upon herself and visited children and families in poverty, spending much of her time with the sick and dying. Her dedication to the unseen and poor of Argentina gained her insane popularity among the poor and working class. She was loved so much that she was seen as basically a saint. She was their Evita. You see why I was like, there has to be something more behind the word Evita. Basically, Eva Perón should be Saint Evita. That's what I'm trying to get at here. And Juan Perón saw this. He has a whole other level of skeletons in his closet and used Eva so much. For example, by the time the 1951 election rolled around, Juan's policies had become known as Peronism, which simply was a system that promoted social justice and patriotism, and the government had taken control of many industries and businesses of the working class, seemingly to improve their production. And since Eva was basically the saint of the working class, Juan used her to help him stay in power. Again, I'm skipping over a lot of things here. I have very distaste for this man. In 1951, Eva was chosen by her husband to be his candidate for vice president. I'm telling you, he knew her power, and she already had power alone, but he wanted to give her more power to help him out. Now, interestingly, and not surprisingly, some of Juan's more conservative allies weren't too excited about this choice because they didn't like the possibility of, if Juan died in office, Eva would become president. And that was not acceptable because she would make the country better. But on the other side, this was a brilliant move by Juan. Evita, is massively popular. Again, think Princess Diana level popular, mainly from the working class women. The insanity and intensity of the crowds she drew surprised Juan himself, and this just solidified Juan that making his wife his running mate was a brilliant idea. When I say the crowds were intense, this photo is of Eva collapsing into her husband's arms because the crowd was chanting so hard for her to accept the candidacy for vice president. On January 9th, 1950, Eva fainted in public and was rushed to the hospital. Unbeknownst to the public and possibly even Eva herself, because Juan kept it from her. She reportedly had an appendectomy, and this showed that Eva had advanced cervical cancer. When this was known, she became the first woman of Argentina to undergo chemotherapy. Now, I say she possibly might not have known that she had cervical cancer. There is a whole other can of worms to that. Just know that the chemotherapy, a couple of other things that start to come up, are not of her consent. Fast forward to Juan running for re-election. On August 21st, 1951, trade unions did a rally with a crowd as big as 2 million people to show support for the Juan and Eva ticket. This rally is thought to be the largest gathering for a female political figure in history, and it is from that rally that this photo comes from. As you can guess, because of her illness, Eva declined to run as vice president. However, despite her failing health, she stayed in the public eye. By her own choosing or by force, don't quite know. Remember, I'm going to keep hammering the nail here, she has advanced cancer, and she was getting very weak very fast. She was so weak that a frame was made that would go under her dresses that helped her stand up straight. But by 1952, she couldn't stand without help. On Eva's 33rd birthday, May 7th, 1952, Juan and the Argentine Congress gave her the title of Spiritual Leader of the Nation. On November 11th, 1950, the people of Argentina, including women and Eva herself, went to vote for the next president of Argentina. Eva did it from her bed, but nonetheless, she voted. On that day, Eva and all the women of Argentina voted for the first time in their lives. Unsurprisingly, Juan won re-election once again by a landslide, and on June 4th, 1952, Eva rode with Juan in a parade through the streets of Buenos Aires to celebrate Juan's re-election win. Now, remember, by 1952, Eva can barely stand up on her own, and she's pretty freaking sick. In this photo, she has that support system that was made to help her stand up. That's underneath her clothing so she could stand up in the flipping car. This parade would be her last public appearance. By this point, Eva's health was declining. She was emaciated and weighed barely 80 pounds by the time she did the re-election parade. And if you zoom in on that photo and you look at her face, her cheeks are sunken in and she just looks so sick. To make everything even more sick, the last few months of her life was in excruciating pain, mainly because of Juan. Disturbingly, her remains suggest that she had underwent, I'm fully assuming, not with her approval and consent, a prefrontal lobotomy, which, if you don't know what that is, it is basically what was done in every insane asylum ever, and you took an ice pick and a hammer, you lifted up the eyebrow, you put the ice pick into there, you hammered it in, it took away like some of the things. It was awful. That was done to Eva to somehow try to alleviate her illness symptoms. I have no idea who thought that was a good idea, but good God. Eva also had a hysterectomy, removal of everything woman, on top of doing chemotherapy. Again, all of this, possibly, I'm assuming completely, without her knowledge or consent. All of these odd attempts were mainly forced on Eva by Juan because, one, I genuinely think he didn't want her to die because I really do think that he loved her. And remember, his first wife died of cancer, so he just didn't want to go through that again without trying anything and everything to save her. But I also think, too, he really did not want his most powerful political pawn and weapon to die. It just makes it all the more sick. But Juan is not God. Eva Evita Perón died on July 26, 1952 at 8:25 p.m. at the Unzoon Palace of cervical cancer at the age of 33. Radio broadcasts around the country were interrupted with the awful news that, quote, The press secretary's office of the presidency of the nation fulfills its very sad duty to inform the people of the republic that at 20:25 hours, Mrs. Eva Perón, spiritual leader of the nation, died. End quote. When Eva Perón died, the country stopped. Literally. The government suspended all official things for several days. All flags flew at half-mast for 10 days. Movie theaters closed their doors. Restaurant patrons were asked to leave. Businesses across Argentina shut down completely. I know I've said this a few times, but the best way to describe what happened in Argentina when Eva died is what happened to the world when Princess Diana died. The grief was overwhelming. The night of her death, a crowd 10 blocks deep formed around the presidential residence. The morning after her death, Eva's body was being transported from the presidential residence to the Ministry of Labor building. 8 people were crushed to death by the mob of crowds, and over the next 24 hours, over 2,000 people were treated for injuries they got rushing to be near her body as it was being transported. For the next 2 weeks, lines stretched for miles with mourners waiting for hours just to see Eva's body lying in state at the Ministry of Labor. The streets of Buenos Aires overflowed with flowers for blocks. All flower shops in the city ran out of flowers within a day, so flowers were flown into the city from all over the country, and some were even flown into Argentina from out of the country. Some flowers came as far away as Chile. Despite Eva never holding a political office, she was given a state funeral that is usually for heads of state, along with a whole Roman Catholic Requiem Mass. This is to offer the deceased's soul repose or rest. The death was so prominent that the Argentine athletes that were in Helsinki, Finland for the 1952 Summer Olympics held their own memorial service during the games, and I even found this photo of people lighting memorial candles to a blown up picture of Eva in Brazil. Brazil! Now, this is something I've never done. I'm going to criminally skip over the huge part of how Eva's body was handled after her death, purely because how her body was handled after her death is a video in and of itself, and I cannot glance over the things that were done to her body without doing it justice. However, I'm going to point you to a brilliant and funny video done by Caitlin Doty, aka Ask the Mortician, on the journey of Eva's corpse. Now, I knew before I found her video that she was handled oddly after her death, but I had no idea. So please go check her video out if you want to know the depths of the crappiness and craziness Eva's corpse went through. Even in death, she truly could not be used as a political pawn. Oh my God, fudge. But for my video, since her dead body is a big part of her story, briefly, truly, after the funeral, Eva's body, and this was not her wish or her consent, was embalmed. That was done mainly because Juan had a massive memorial being constructed where she would be basically put on flippin' display like a freaking museum, but thank God, before it was completed, now thank God for him, Juan was overthrown by another military coup in 1955, so he resigned his position and fled the country. The only problem is that he fled so fast and selfishly that Juan forgot to make plans to secure his dead wife's body, mainly because among the chaos of being overthrown, which I cannot even begin to understand how stressful that is, Eva's body disappeared. And from this point, go watch Caitlin's video. But what I can tell you, long story short, it took 20 years for Eva's body to be laid in her final resting place. but not after. From 1955 to 1971, no one knew where the flip her body went. Her body was basically buried in a pauper's grave. In 1971, her body was found, exhumed, and flown to Spain, reunited with Juan, who's still alive, and remarried. His third wife's name is Isabel, by the way. And for some reason, Juan kept his dead wife's scarcely creepily still perfectly preserved corpse in his home, where both he and Isabel thought very casually that it was a brilliant idea that Eva's corpse should be kept in the dining room on a platform near the dining room table, and Isabel would reportedly comb and style Eva's hair every day. Like, when I tell you her corpse's story is insane, it's insane. Please go watch Caitlin's video on her corpse. It's going to be in a little box somewhere around here, and I'll put it in the description. Please go watch it. Really quickly, Juan returned to Argentina, somehow became president again. His wife, Isabel, was vice president. On July 1st, 1974, Juan died in office at the age of 78. Isabel then became president, had Eva's body moved back to Argentina because when Juan went back to Argentina, he left his wife's body in Spain. Don't even get me started. Where it was displayed again next to the body of her husband. And interestingly, Juan's casket was closed, but Eva's remained open. Again, I'm assuming as a political pawn because Isabel was married to Juan and Juan was married to Eva, which, you know, Evita. But also, again, isn't her embalmed body really creepy looking? I mean, it's gorgeously preserved. Don't get me wrong. That's really freaking creepy looking. After a lot of other things, I mean, good God, Eva's body was finally laid to rest in her family, the Duarte's family's tomb in the La Recoleta Cemetery in Buenos Aires. Later, the Argentine government took insane measures to make absolute sure Eva's body stayed. The tomb's marble floor has a trap door that leads to a compartment that holds two coffins. Under that compartment, there's another trap door and a second compartment, and it is there where Eva Perón's coffin and body rest. It is even said that the tomb could survive a nuclear bomb. Like, dude, Eva's body ain't going nowhere. She's there, and she's gonna flip and stay there. Eva Perón's legacy in Argentina is truly unmatched. Her life was short, but she used her immense power to change hundreds of thousands of Argentine lives. Her love for children was profound. Her fight for female equality was never seen before. She's seen as an icon for equality, humanitarianism, and feminism that has stretched all over the world. Her life has been the inspiration for numerous political movements, stage plays, books, articles, musicals, songs, TV shows, and movies. Most famously, the 1958 musical Evita, made by Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice, that is based on her life. The musical was then adapted into the very famous American biographical musical Evita in 1996, where Madonna plays Eva, and Madonna played her so freaking good that Madonna won a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy. The musical is so famous that it has been revived 6 times, most recently in 2019 in London, and it has won 8 Tony Awards. In 2012, Eva was on the Argentine 100 pesos note commemorating the anniversary of her death, and she is featured again on the new 100 peso note issued in 2022. And of course, she's been a stamp. If you know anything about me, I want to be a stamp. Do any of you know this song?
Don't cry for me, Argentina. The truth is I never left you. All through my wild days, my mad existence, I kept my promise. Don't keep your distance.
This song was composed by Andrew and Tim for the musical Evita. This is a song sung as Eva, both alive and dead, asking the Argentine people to not mourn her. The song was called a masterpiece by the Sunday Times and reached the top charts of Australia, Ireland, New Zealand, the Netherlands, and Belgium. And when Madonna sang it, flippin' amazingly. In the movie adaptation, it gained an all-new fame in America and Canada, reaching many American and Canadian top musical charts. Madonna still sings it to this day, and most recently she sang it on her celebration tour in 2024. It is really hard to explain the amount of love and legacy Eva obtained. To this day, she is still an endeared and adored cultural icon in Argentina and Latin America, and many still honor the anniversary of her death and is still seen as almost saint-like. She paved the way to give women the right to vote, fought for poverty to end, and remains a symbol of femininity, class, self-sacrifice, and true leadership in not only Argentina, but all over the world. And she will remain intertwined with Argentina's herstory and future for decades to come. Okay, there you go, my lovely souls. The story of Evita. And may I say, yes, there's other videos on Eva, but they all focus on her and Juan, and she deserves a video about herself and herself alone, with Juan being the supporting actor, and I hope I have done her justice. If you learned something today, and I really hope you did, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And while you're down there, please leave a friendly comment. I will be back with another video, but the next time you see me, there will be Halloween things around here. I have Halloween nails on. It's all great. It's awesome. I love my Halloween nails. But until then, don't be well behaved. You just might make herstory. See you next time, guys.